Hi, this is Robert Gephardt from ThisWeekIn.Asia. This Week in Asia brings you news and interviews with entrepreneurs and trailblazers from all around Asia. Today, I'm talking to Qasim Zafar from Savaree, which is Pakistan's first ride-sharing platform. And I'm sorry if I pronounced those incorrectly. Hi, Qasim.
Hi, Robert. I think you pronounced it. You did a pretty good job of it. I'm basically Qasim Zafar, the co-founder of Savaree. It's a ride-sharing and cab booking service for Pakistan, and we're basically introducing a model that's workable in the subcontinent and across the Gulf. The idea initially started off as a ride-sharing only platform, but now we're focused more on bringing a layer of cabs to it as well.
And how did this idea first come about?
So I was actually during my college days, I actually realized that a lot of friends used to share rides with others. And being a day scholar myself, I also needed lots of rides. I didn't have my car at all times, so I hitched with friends. I asked people I didn't really know well, but were classmates, to take me along, and they were fine with it. So I sort of realized that if we could bring a platform that could formalize this entire process of finding a ride within communities, it's something that could really work. So I started off with Savari. We initially focused on communities like you could maybe share a ride with coworkers you don't really know that well, but work in the same office, or maybe let's say students who are at the same university you've seen at face value, but you're not really good friends with. And basically, this was the idea, making a community where people have a common background or a common association to each other so that they could share. Uh, but eventually, the idea sort of realized to the point where we were at the stage where we had a couple of universities on board. We have some corporate centers on board. So there's like hubs of place of offices and different companies, campuses, and so on. And all of these places are like tied together with this common factor, right? Everybody belongs to the same workplace or the same area or the same, let's say, class. So it's like associations that help you relate to the other person. So this is how the idea of Savari came about. It was just a way to formalize what people were already doing.
Now, listening to this, I think for many people, one of the first things they'll think is that it seems like a pretty handy idea, but safety might be somewhat of an issue. So, what verification can you provide for drivers and passengers?
Yeah, so basically what we do is now we've started introducing the Savari guarantee, which ensures that basically if you take a ride with Savari, you'll get a ride that is safe, reliable, and on time. And this guarantee is so the safety part of this is basically verified backgrounds of drivers. We verify the backgrounds of the passengers as well. And at the same time, we also introduce this very interesting concept of social authentication, where if you have a couple of friends who are putting their reputation on the line to vouch for you, kind of like LinkedIn recommendations, we feel that that's the sort of trustworthiness and the sort of guarantee that you can't get elsewhere. So, I mean, regardless of however many paper checks you do, this is the sort of guarantee that really makes a difference. Where you've got, let's say, 50 people vouching for you, that really means that, all of these people trust you, and therefore, taking a ride with you is safe. Added to that, once we have your institutional or organizational background, that's also something that makes for a really compelling argument. It sort of becomes a lot easier to get into somebody else's car that way.
Now, if I understand correctly, this operates where people are using their own cars, correct?
Yeah.
And so this isn't, say, a taxi service or anything like that. However, there might be issues with insurance or liability in that sense.
Oh, no, no, no. So basically, that's where you're sort of missing out. We're also doing cabs,
Oh,
and yeah, so it's more of a hybrid between, let's say, BlaBlaCar and Uber, where it's a cab on demand service as well as ride sharing. So even though we initially started off as ride sharing, we've sort of pivoted into the place where now we also have cabs operational. The rationale for that was that it's really hard to find that coincidence that somebody's going the same way at the same time that you need to go, and you need a really large network of people in your platform for that to actually make sense in a carpooling sense. But with a startup, that's really not the case. You have a smaller user base. So instead, if you have an underlying framework of cabs, you can ensure that the sharing happens much more effectively. If two people need a ride and there's no driver going that way, you send a cab instead. So we do have a cab, we do have a fleet of cabs, and they're also verified in the same way. We have background checks on all the drivers. We have their licenses on file, their ID card numbers, and so on. So I mean, it's like a pretty safe proposition. But with insurance, the idea is that we're working with a couple of insurance providers for some, let's say, liability insurance while you're taking the ride. As far as the cars go, we don't get into the hassle of insuring cars because that's the responsibility of the contractors that we work with. So yes, I mean, insurance is something that is somewhat of an issue, but in the Pakistani context, not everybody has insurance. Let's be very honest. So
Okay.
it's not so, and it's not mandated by the government either. So it's not as much of a deal breaker as it would be, let's say, in America or maybe England and so on.
But actually, I mean, because you mentioned now that so you basically have at the same time pure ride sharing and a fleet of cabs. Now, this must have a
Yeah.
different cost structure, correct?
Yeah, definitely. The cost structure is different. However, at the same time, what we try to do is because Savari is all about sharing, we try to encourage people to share those cabs as well, and that reduces your cost by an order of magnitude. So if you're sharing with, let's say, two or three other friends, or maybe a couple of other coworkers, the cost turns out to be the same as you would pay for maybe sharing. Yeah.
And how do you factor in? What is your revenue model for all this?
Right now, so Pakistan is a really cash-based economy. Anything that you do here is based in cash. So e-commerce is cash-based with cash on delivery. So I mean, cash is king here. So what we're doing is we're basically facilitating transactions through cash. It doesn't really make sense for to change user behavior altogether. Let's at least keep the payment mechanism something that people are familiar with. So right now it's based on cash. We have the contract with their contractors where we get a cut off every share. There's record keeping on both sides, and we do this on a weekly basis for basically our cut. It's a percentage commission off every ride that we take.
And I assume people will always access your site or go through your site to find these ride shares and cabs, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you can keep track of growth and the number of people
Yeah,
using your
we
site.
can keep track of who our users are, what they look for, how often they use us, are they interested in cabs or are they strictly ride sharing focused? And so far the results are pretty interesting. But like in a society like Pakistan, it's something that you wouldn't really expect, but women are some of our most prolific sharers. So women are really like willing to get into somebody else's car and share rides with them. About 65% of our user base is female, so that's a pretty interesting insight
Wow.
because maybe it's because of the idea that in Pakistan women don't have bikes, which is a really cost affordable, effective way to get around. But it's an interesting insight into how so far what we've experienced.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is interesting. So, and what kind of growth have you been seeing in general?
So in general, we've basically been seeing, but with ride sharing, we sort of flatlined. We realized that we sort of peaked with ride sharing, but as soon as we started cabs about 2.5 months ago, it's really taking off. So now the number of rides per day that we're doing now is about 10 times as much as what we were doing about 3 months ago. So with cabs, we've realized that maybe what we were thinking about, that ensuring that coincidence is actually true. People really have a problem finding a coincidence or finding a match with rideshares. But with cabs, it's a lot easier to have that. So I mean, it's yeah, we're growing pretty fast now. We're hoping to reach break even by the end of this year.
Oh, wow. And for the cabs as well, then a majority of the users are women there too.
So yeah, cabs are also used by women, but then the cabs. So we're doing two things with cabs. One is basically for the general public. The other is corporate partnerships, where we provide them any sort of transportation bandwidth that they might need. And because of that, we feel that with cabs, it's a more balanced out demographic, but with ride sharing, it's more women focused. So I mean, it remains to be seen what the exact causes are. These are just insights we do recently. but we're definitely looking into it because it's something that's really worth exploring.
Have you been receiving any outside investment?
So we haven't been receiving any outside investments. We've been a bootstrap company so far. We're looking for investment, but it remains to be seen exactly because so far our strategy has been to bootstrap to profitability, where we basically get enough key strategic partnerships in place, enough key, let's say, get this sort of organic growth model going, where we have friends and referrals and so on, so that you don't really need a lot of money to throw at marketing and still get the same sort of numbers. So we're looking at a really low spend, really effective way of getting the word across and increasing our user base. So far, it's worked really awesome because we've noticed comparative. So we have a competitor in the market. They're really throwing money, but as far as the numbers go, they're about the same footing, or maybe, I mean, we might even actually be ahead of them in terms of rides per day. So I mean, we've realized that because we've been in this market long enough, we've kind of figured out what are the really low spend ways of increasing your community, increasing traction, and increasing the repeatability of your users. So, I mean, it's a pretty interesting, exciting time to be in. And with the growth, we feel that we don't really need a lot of outside investment.
Well, yeah, and if you don't need it, it's better to retain ownership. If yeah.
Exactly.
And so, what are the future plans then for Savaree?
So with Savaree, we're basically doing ride sharing in a way that's so in the Pakistani market, you don't have the constant access to the internet. There are no payment solutions available, and then trust is also an issue. And we feel that now that we've solved all of these problems, we can actually look into other markets that have similar problems. So now we're looking at places like in the Indian subcontinent, and then we've had interest from a couple of investors from different regions who want to see if we could basically launch Savaree in their home countries. We're working closely with them, and hopefully within a year and a half, 2 years, you'll actually see Savaree have really. So we'll basically have solved the problem for Pakistan by the end of 2 years, hopefully, and we'll also probably be operational in one or two other markets by then. What we plan to do is we plan to so Savari is an entire philosophy, right? It's a philosophy of sharing. It's a philosophy of bringing rides, decent, affordable rides to the masses. Cabs in Pakistan are normally really elite transportation. Everybody goes with rickshaws and shared rickshaws and so on. We want to do is we want to move cabs downwards and promote sharing as a really good thing because it's a really healthy for society. Where and it's not something you normally see in Pakistan. So it's again, it's a game of changing user behaviors, changing perceptions, and at the same time bringing cabs down market to a broader audience. And I think that future plans are probably going to be like relevant to the entire subcontinent and maybe a couple of countries nearby, where let's say a similar social setup exists, a similar mindset exists, and we're looking to solve that.
And you mentioned that you're trying to bring the cost of cabs down, and so you mentioned that you can share cabs when you use them. Is there any other way that you are bringing the cost down?
Yeah, so basically, in Pakistan, the cab operators, traditional cab operators, have been working on a let's say high margin, low volume basis. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to shift their perception because to scale, you can't really take that model. What you need like a high volume, low margin model. And we're trying to help them understand and realize. So we work with contractors. We bring one on board and have them realize the importance and the necessity of having a lot of users at maybe not as high a markup. And we're trying to basically grow that way and trying to make people see the benefit in actually offering services at a lower cost. So we're offering on both sides, so users can share, and at the same time we're working with contractors to bring the prices down. So it's a two-pronged approach. I think that so far we've been pretty successful because our rates are not much higher than what you would get from a rickshaw, but at the same time instead we're sending you a car, so that really makes a hell of a lot of difference.
Switching gears a minute here, I'd like to ask about doing business in Pakistan in general. Now,
Yeah.
could you describe, I guess, what it's like to set up a business in Pakistan? Maybe what are some good points or some bad points?
So I guess so what's really good about the Pakistani market is that Pakistani customers are really loyal. they're actually loyal to a fault. People are still buying, let's say, 20-year-old car models because, I mean, it's what their father drove, or maybe they had a good experience with. They're not really looking to. So once they're with you, they're gonna stick with you probably for the rest of their life. And that's a really good thing because if you can latch onto those users, barring a really bad experience, they're gonna stick with you. So but at the same time, for these users, public advertisements aren't really as effective as word of mouth. So they take let's say, they attach real importance to the value of interpersonal relationships. And if somebody recommends something to you, they're probably likely to try that out. So, I mean, that's like a really good point. If you can actually get a community going, some sort of organic growth going, you've probably hit the sweet spot in terms of Pakistani customers. As far as the legalities go, setting up a company is fairly straightforward. We don't have vesting schedules in the country though, so you have to figure out creative ways of getting around that. But at the same time, I think if you're committed, I mean, you're committed, right? Uh, and one of the most important things to realize is that Pakistan is like on this verge of actually becoming the next startup hub. So people have suddenly realized the importance of startups, and because it's probably like a bandwagon effect, but every university in the country is setting up their own incubators. The government has started a program for startups, and then there's lots of different. So there's Startup Cup happening regularly. There's lots of different international competitions that are happening in the country as well. So, I mean, it's like a really nice time. And because of the lack of opportunity in traditional jobs elsewhere in the country, people are really turning to entrepreneurship both out of passion as well as out of necessity. And considering that our workforce is really young, I mean, like we have more than 50% of our people are under 30 years of age. I mean, you have talent, you have energy, you have drive, and the ecosystem's just opening up. So I feel it's like a really nice time. And if you wait maybe 2 or 3 years, you might actually be in danger of missing out. So I mean, I totally go for it. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a perfect storm of things, yeah, coming together.
Yeah, I mean, everything's fitting in at the right time in the right place. One issue that is holding us back is a payments gateway. So we don't. So that's basically because of state bank regulations. It's a problem that everybody admits is a problem, and I feel that the government is looking into it because they've basically gotten this committee that's focused on IT laws and regulations and so on, and this is something that's been brought up to them by the Pakistan Software Houses Association. So we're expecting that even the payments problem will be solved in a couple of years, and until then, cash, like I told you, is what's right. I mean, it's the right time to be here. I mean, everything's just coming into place at the right time, and it's really you can find great people, you can find a great environment. I mean, it's a really nice place to be in, and the experience so far has been really great for us in Savaree. You'll probably be hearing about us a lot in the coming months. There's some things that we're working on, which are expected to make waves. So, stay tuned.
Stay
That's all I
tuned.
can
Okay.
say.
If people wanted to get in touch with you and learn more about you and Savaree, they can go to savaree.co, correct?
Yeah, they can go to
All
savaree.co.
right. Savaree.
They can also contact us. We have our email on the website, and we also have a really active Facebook page, so you can also contact us from there.
And you seem really enthusiastic about it. That's good because sometimes you find people that are a bit frustrated doing business wherever they are. But yeah, you seem that you're really into it.
So there's always ups and downs with startups. Being not enthusiastic is not really an option.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, you have to be in any way. I mean, yeah, exactly. You know how that works. So yes, I'm really enthusiastic about it.